Welcome to the Women Writing Podcast. I'm your book coach, Liisa Kovala. I'm a certified fiction and memoir book coach and the author of Like Water for Weary Souls, Sisters Winter War, and Surviving Struthof, and the Hygge House Nordic Cozy Mystery Series. As a Finnish Canadian, I also love my coffee. Take a coffee break with us as we chat about all things writerly with authors and publishing industry professionals. And don't forget to sign up for my Women Writing newsletter on Substack and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great content. In today's episode of Women Writing, I'm having a coffee break with Tammy Euliano. Tammy's writing is inspired by her day job as a physician, researcher, and educator at University of Florida. She has received numerous teaching awards, 100,000 views on her YouTube teaching videos, and was featured in a calendar of women inventors. In addition to short fiction, including a 2025 Derringer Award, she writes the Katie Downey medical thriller series, including Fatal Intent and Misfire, published by Ocean View. Kathy Reichs called it medical suspense as sharp as it gets. Hi, Tammy. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Lisa?
I'm so good. Spring is here. The sunshine has been shining for days. I'm thrilled. Whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm in Gainesville, Florida, North Central Florida. So it's summer for us.
Yeah. But you're feeling the heat now.
Yeah, today is actually gorgeous, but it's been up in the 90s with really high humidity. So
yes,
it's Florida.
Yeah, you just roll with it, right? That's why with snowbirds.
In the winter, we have a wonderful fall, winter, spring, and just a little bit of a miserable summer.
Right. You just have to get through it for sure. Well, I'm so excited to talk to you. We have a mutual acquaintance, Dave Wickenden, who's the, I guess you'd call him the president of the Crime Writers of Canada. Is it the president or the chair or something like that? One of those roles where you have some things you have to do. So I'm glad we were connected through Dave. And I was so interested in the fact that you have a medical career and you're also a writer. It seems like two very intense and time consuming careers. So let's just roll back time here a little bit. And when did you start to get interested in pursuing writing? Let's start there.
Well, so like many of your interviewees, I can pull back into my crates from grade school and find stories that I wrote about lions and butterflies and on that paper that has the little dotted line in the middle and you're working on your letters. And I love to write even in high school, nothing competition wise, but just writing little stories. But college, medical school, residency, motherhood, kind of none of that was really conducive to any creative works. And then I worked with one of my mentors. I felt like we needed a good introductory textbook for medical students for anesthesia, which is my field. And so he said, well, let's just write one. And so he and I, over the course of about 2 years, wrote a very, not superficial, but, introductory sort of textbook. And we included humor and little asides, and it was so much fun. And when we finished it, he said, why don't we write something else? And so I'm picturing another textbook. And he says, how about a mystery? What a great idea. So here's this 85-year-old man from, who was part of World War II, and me sitting around trying to plot a mystery. And it was so much fun. But he fell ill pretty soon after that and passed away. But he'd given me the bug. Yes. And so I decided to start writing. And then I'd written a textbook, I'd written chapters, I'd written, 100 peer-reviewed articles.
Yeah.
And I sat down and went, I don't know anything about writing.
Right?
Nothing. I read a lot, but oh my gosh, it's so different.
Yeah.
So it was very humbling to step back and start at the bottom. I was sort of at the plateau of my career at that point, and now I'm back at the bottom learning from 20-year-olds about how to write. So, but it was wonderful to do that. And it uses such a different side of your brain. And I started out writing, myself, like so many of us do, right? You write the character that not necessarily who you are, but who you wish you were, right? So it's anesthesiologist and she's brilliant and whatever. Yes. way cooler than I am. So it was super fun giving her all these traits that I wish I had. And yeah, and then the plots just they started out things that had troubled me during my training, like in the ICU, when is it time to pull the plug and when is it not? And who should make that decision? And what about when people disagree? And what about the patient's wishes when they can't voice them? And that was just
Yeah.
super, that sort of ethically murky topic was
Yeah.
very intriguing to me. And so I decided that that would be my first book. And so
That's
the
so good.
challenge of bringing in medical things at the right level for readers that isn't boring but isn't
Hmm.
realistic, and
Yeah.
taking a, a topic that is fraught and trying to put characters on all different sides of it that have cogent arguments without preaching it was just super fun. And so that's
Yes.
that's where I've sort of stayed in that
I
sort
love
of
that.
book. I
Yeah.
think book clubs enjoy those sorts of things because they're a
Yes.
good discussion topic. um
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm having fun with it.
100%. It's so fun. I love the idea that you um had somebody who said like, okay, let's just do this. Like, there's always somebody in our lives who's like, okay, like let's not think too hard about it. Just go do it. And so writing, that textbook, but also then that he must have had a little sense of wanting to be a writer himself and loving, reading and writing. So, and here was a willing partner who would be like, okay, sure, let's go do that. I think that collaboration would have been really delightful. How did you find that?
It was amazing, and I wish there's a picture that we shared a secretary that she took of one of us is at the whiteboard drawing the floor plan of the room where the events are happening, and the other one of us, in fact, I think it's me sitting, which is weird since
Yes.
he was five. And we're going over the plot, and I love that picture. It's in my office at
So
work.
great.
Um, yeah, I mean, I hadn't even thought about how it might have been good for him too,
Mm.
but yeah, he had written
Yeah.
some children's stories for his
Mm.
grandkids, and
Okay.
he shared them with me, and they're just amazing. They're beautiful
Yeah.
stories. I should get permission from his family to publish them in his name. But yeah, I was very privileged to have been able to be mentored by him. He really made my career, both my medical career and my post pivot career.
Yeah. Yeah, there are just people like that, right? Who just are so influential in so many ways. And he really put you on the path to writing, which clearly is a joyous thing for you. I just think that's phenomenal because, even if we love to write, sometimes we're so immersed in our own careers and our family life and all the things we're doing that we don't necessarily like, we kind of put it aside. But when somebody else comes along and says, hey, let's do it. I feel like that just gives us like that, motivation to go, oh yeah, 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 this would be fun. And that it's not like, super stressful. It was meant to be a great activity. Did you finish the book that you were writing with him at the time?
No, I never did, and I actually pulled up the files before I started my current work in progress, thinking I would try to resurrect it, but we really didn't get
Yeah.
very far, and I
Right.
was really a bad writer at the time. So
Yeah, yeah.
reading it, you just go, "Oh, it's so cringeworthy."
No, but I feel like that's such a good thing that over time, when you look back at your work, you can either go, "Oh, that was so terrible because we know so much better now," or we can look back and go, "Oh, like I see what I was trying to do," or like actually that idea is really great, or you can see the like positive bits of it, but you know how you would write it now because you've changed and grown as a writer. So like it's kind of an indication that like this really is a journey. Most writers start, we're not good, and that's okay. I always tell new writers, you're learning all kinds of things. Like if you think about your medical career and your medical training, like you didn't just jump in there and do the thing. Like you were taught and you were studying and you were like somebody was mentoring you and all the things, right? Like it takes. We can't. I mean, we can jump in and write a book, but also with no experience or training and maybe not as good.
Yeah, and the as I mentioned, the idea that I had to learn how to write. You've been writing since you
Yes.
were 6 when you were learning your
Yes.
letters, but there's so much more to it. And
That's
so
right.
I went on Amazon and said, I'm just going to get whatever the top book is on how to write a mystery, and this will be fine.
Yes.
I had no idea there would be thousands to choose from, and
Right.
books that are just on character or just on dialogue. And you go, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
there's got to be just, there's so much to it. And I was always I want to learn it all. And there's just like no
Yes.
way.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
figuring out
There's a little bit of letting go there, isn't there? Like I'm the same. I want to know all the things. I want to learn. I want to read everything I can about the thing. I want to take all the courses and all the classes and all the webinars. And at some point, you just have to actually write the book instead of like studying about how to write the book. And that's a really important learning tool too, because I mean, we can know theoretically, but until you actually start to write, then you realize,
absolutely.
oh, I don't know how to do that. Everyone else makes it look so easy.
Right. Right. And then you
Yeah.
sit down and you try to write the first sentence and you go, I have no idea where to begin. I don't
Yeah.
know.
It's
Yeah.
true. It's
It can be
true.
daunting, but it can also be so exhilarating when it starts to
Yeah.
flow and
Yeah.
the characters come alive in your head. And when I do book clubs, I mention that, I'm writing my scene and it's just not working. And the character's going, I would not do that. And I'm like, I made you. You do what I say.
Yeah.
You're in my head. And like, nope, that's not
No,
how this goes.
that is not how it works.
I like needing some medication or what, but
I
it's
know
so
this is the truth though. It's very true. So are you still practicing as in the medical field?
I am. Yeah, I went down to 60% at work. So I work 3 days
Okay.
a week. And so mostly I'm teaching residents and medical students. And my subspecialty is obstetric anesthesia. So I take care of
Okay.
for labor epidurals and C-sections. And then usually one day a week, I'm in the main OR taking care of whatever they throw my way.
Yeah.
And then the rest, I take Fridays off definitely. And that's my main writing day. And then
Yes.
whatever other day I'm off that week, I do some writing. My parents are elderly and having lots of medical issues, so
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time
Yeah.
traipsing to doctors' offices and doing this
100%.
sandwich generation stuff, right? My kids are grown,
Exactly.
but my
Yeah.
parents are, yeah.
Yeah, and even grown kids need you sometimes. So there's, yeah, I
Yes.
totally hear this, right? With the elderly parents and adult children and the work and writing. But so you're finding time to write, you kind of put it in where you can on a Friday, you try to put it in through the week. Do you find that you're somebody who can write for many hours at a time, or is it in little blocks of time? Like, how does that flow work for you, or does it matter even?
I wish I knew what was best for me. I think it's best for me if I try to do just a little bit every day, just because if
Right.
I go 6 days without writing, if I'm not, my brain can't hold it as well as it used to be able
Mhm.
to. And so I
Yes.
think it helps a lot if I at least leave myself some little breadcrumbs about where to go next.
Yes.
Um, when I have a writing day, I tend to sit here and at least stare at the computer all day. Whether I'm actually being productive or not is another question. It's
Thinking.
nice.
Yeah.
My dogs need to be walked and
Mhm.
something to get me up and out. But I feel like if I'm not at the hospital being a doctor, I need to be productive in my writing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I need another hobby so I can be productive in something else. But
I know.
it's a little bit all consuming when I'm not at the hospital, just because I feel so
Yes.
short on time. I feel like I
Yeah.
need to, and I think that sort of pressure may not be the best way
Right.
to be productive because you're,
Yeah.
um, I don't know, forcing it sometimes when it may be actually way more productive to just sit back and let it come to me.
Right. Right. Yeah. That is sort of the challenge I think so many writers have. And at different stages of their lives, there are different stressors and obligations and responsibilities and time constraints. And what works at one point will not work at another point, and we're just shifting and changing. So I always like to know what people, how they handle it, because I too am always struggling with how to make this work, even though I'm coaching other writers all the time about how to make it work. But it's true. We just have to find our own groove, right? And allow for that. Like life happens and we need to adjust to it. Um, I did want to ask you about, so writing medical thrillers, and you also use tech in your writing. Can you talk a little bit about the tech aspects? Because I think that's such a important topic right now.
Yeah, so anesthesiologists tend to be computer nerd, geeky kind of techie people, right? We've got lots of technology that we use. And in fact, during my earlier years, I did a lot of research and we have some patents so I'm very into that. And so when there is tools, I like to investigate them, which can just be a big time sink or it can be helpful depending on how you use them. So I've used a lot of the tools that are out there. The ones that I really am a evangelist for is Scrivener, I think is wonderful. Even if you only use it for the writing and you don't deal with all the metadata and all the other very involved stuff. But I've found that to be hugely helpful for me, not so much for short stories, but for long form stories, just being able to see the chapters and yeah, you can sort of do it in Word. So I really like Scrivener. I've used a lot of the other ones in pieces, but I don't know if you can see in the corner of my office, I've got an enormous whiteboard, which we used to use to teach the kids when they were young, but now it's covered with plots. And so I'm doing a low-tech version of, a normal old whiteboard. But the problem is then when I erase something, it's really gone and I can't Control Z anywhere on my whiteboard to get it back.
Right?
So I end up with all these photographs of my whiteboard that I then have to search through. And so I still like the low tech stuff at times.
Yes.
But I use, as I said, Scrivener. I've used Plotter, which is a nice plotting tool, and I've liked it. I wish it has some features that it doesn't have. But sometimes I'll just use Excel. I use Excel a lot, actually,
Yes.
for writing out my plot, for looking at the word counts on my chapters, I keep a character list, A through Z, and I put in
Yes.
female or male and surname. So I make sure I don't duplicate
Yes.
starting letters on characters and, just those sorts of timelines and
Yeah.
things. You can do all that within Scrivener, and very often I'll copy it in there, but it doesn't have the same. I used it so much for my research that I'm pretty good at moving
Yeah.
around in Excel. So I really prefer to
Yeah.
use what I'm good at.
Yes. Yeah.
And then, the usual Dropbox and those sorts of things to make
Yeah.
sure I have version control and
Yeah.
backups and that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Great idea. Yeah, Scrivener is a great tool. I have used it as well, off and on over the years. And what I loved about it was being able to house the research under sub labels and easily get to that link instead of looking for it again or finding where I had saved the link or whatever, and it was all there. And I loved the corkboard where you could, have like little index cards for the chapters or whatever you wanted to do. So those kind of visual things were great for me. What I didn't love was actually writing in it. I was the opposite. I liked all the other features, and then I'd be like, no, but I want to type it in Word. So I'd have both open. So maybe not as efficient as I could have been using it, but people love Scrivener. So I don't know if everyone's heard of it, they can go check it out. It's pretty robust, but you don't have to use everything. You can just use some of the bits and pieces. And Plotter too has been useful.
What's that?
I was going to say Plotter has been very useful too for me, because I love housing images and description of different locations and things that, I'm going to forget by book 4. So just, keeping track of all the little details. It's really
So
helpful.
the other super useful thing is it's a free thing called NotebookLM.
Yes.
Google. And I use that for my series Bible. So the guy who is in charge of that product is an author, Stephen Johnson. He's written a number of books. And so I trust him when he says things, and I don't know, that's maybe not right, but so he made it so that if you upload things into it, it does not go to the web. So unlike ChatGPT, if you upload it, unless you do certain settings, then it could end up on the web, but this doesn't. And so I put my books into NotebookLM, and then I can say, what kind of car did Kate drive? And it'll go, oh, in chapter 1 of book 1, she was in and it'll pull that out and it'll give you, you can click on it and it'll go to that page in your book and show you where she was. And
yes.
I use it with my critique group when I'm, intermittent on my submissions, and I'll just say summarize up to chapter 15 in, 3 paragraphs. And it'll do that so that then I can send that to my critique group and say, here's what happened so far.
Yeah.
Here's where I am.
FYI. So good.
In those respects, and keeping me straight on that. And you can do it. I use AI a lot for research, and I try to do it a lot in NotebookLM just because it's what's called source-based. So it will only tell me what's in the articles that I put in it. So it won't hallucinate like the other ones.
That's great. So I knew about NotebookLM and I've experimented a little bit with it, but I didn't understand that aspect. And that makes me feel so much more secure in using it, that like it's really feeding on only the documents you're inputting. And if it's your own work, great. Like that's the stuff. I love that so much. Hot tip for the day. My takeaway. Yeah. And I mean, the use of AI is such a controversial issue right now, like so divisive. Like, and I personally am not somebody who wants to, like, I just don't, I think we can meet in the middle, right? I think we can figure out like the extreme, like absolutely no. And the absolutely yes people, like, okay, like, how about we just agree that some of us will lean this way and some will lean that way, and it'll be fine. But, I've had so many conversations. We had a Right On 2026 summit on the weekend, and I moderated a panel on AI, and they were actually quite moderate, all of them, about the use of AI. I thought there would be more controversy, but there was just a little bit of nuances about how they were going to use it. So when you're thinking about using AI, like, do you have sort of some parameters around your use? Are there like, these are things I will use it for, and these are things I will not? Like, how do you navigate this? Because I think people are struggling.
I do. I will use it for research a lot. I mean, I use it for research I use specific kinds of LLMs for medical research, right? That are grounded in only medical research. But so I'll use it. I wrote a dual timeline that one of the timelines was in 1690, and I don't know anything about 1690, and I live in a college town, but it wasn't here in 1690. So I wanted to look at textbooks from 1690, and I couldn't do that without AI. Well, I mean, I could, but I found the books, I found out where they were. I used AI to help me summarize them and tell me where else to look. And it was just so much faster than a Google search 20 years ago. I mean, even a Google search now is AI, whether people recognize it or not, right?
100%.
And then things like in that dual timeline book, I would have short chapters from 1690, and I think this is fine. Initially, because I was writing it before LLMs, I would take each word I wasn't sure about and go to an etymology dictionary and say, did this word exist in 1690? What else might I have used? Now I can just put that into an LLM and say, please go through this and tell me which words weren't there.
Right.
And offer suggestions. I didn't ask it to rewrite it for me. I just said, instead of Band-Aid, call it a plaster, right? I mean, these are stupid things that I should know, but it's really good at finding those anachronisms that, I mean, I could hire someone to do that, right? I mean, I could probably find some historian willing to read my chapter and tell me where the anachronisms are, but they might miss them too.
That's true.
So in that respect, I don't feel like it's a bad thing, or me putting in a sentence and saying my 20-year-old college student is in this scene, and I want her to say, this is really freaky. How would a 20-year-old say this is really freaky? And it gives me some ideas. But I set mine. You can actually, if you know how to use them, there's in the bottom left almost always is where it is. You go into your parameters and you can say, please never rewrite text for me, only give me suggestions. And so I don't have that even thought that I would take the text because it doesn't give it to me.
100%.
And the idea of somebody saying, here, write me a book, here's my plot, that bothers me. And there are people doing that, no question. There's people bragging about doing that and putting 10 books. And if their readers love it, then good for them. But it's making it harder on the rest of us who can't generate that much text. So I don't ever have it write anything for me. I don't ever cut and paste out of it. Just I make that a rule so that I don't have any tendency to. But one of the arguments that I've heard that I am not sure where I sit on is things like, hey, I want to, have this happen. Give me 5 ways it could happen.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
just sort of having a conversation with the LLM.
Right.
In a
Mm.
way, that's no different than a book coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Having that dialogue. Mm.
Yeah. But I've heard people say that that's an inappropriate use. So I'm a little bit on the fence on that one,
Yeah.
but I'm definitely not a let it rewrite my scene for me.
Yeah. No.
That
That
doesn't.
feels like, well, why are we writing then? Like, don't we want to be writers?
Yeah, but being
Yeah.
able to chat with it about your plot and say,
Sure.
I'd like this to happen. What do you think? And it says, no, that's stupid. Of course, it never says that. It always says, that's the greatest
That's
idea,
amazing.
which you can also tone down. You can tell it to
Yes.
tone sycophancy and
Like a
it will,
really, really supportive friend who never says no.
and you'll end up with a really
Amazing.
weird book if you follow all the,
Exactly. No, I think
the
that's
other
really
places,
reasonable. Mm.
it's super good for was comps. I told it
Yes.
a little bit of my synopsis and then I asked it for comps and holy smokes, compared to me trying to thumb through Goodreads or something, it did a
Yes.
superb job of just
Yeah.
suggesting 3 other books that had similar themes. And I told
Yeah.
it I need them to be within 5 years and I need them to have, good reviews on whatever.
Yes.
And it really did a good job with that. It does a really good job with like making your synopsis and making your query
Mm.
letter stuff, but I never use the
Right. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
always impressed with it, but then I go, yeah,
Right.
not my
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think this is really reasonable use of AI and just the idea that folks like maybe aren't aware of those kinds of things that it's capable of doing if people are being really resistant to it. And that's fair. Like if people don't want to use it at all, that's up to them. I don't think it's going away. Like I think it's here to stay. And then we all have to make those decisions. But I also don't like that there is a lot of judgment around how other people use it. Like I think we individually, as with all other things in our lives, we have to make those decisions for ourselves. But I totally am on board with what you're saying in terms of like, there's a hard line when it comes to like, I want to write my own work, but so many of the tools available can make what we used to do, go to the library, take out the book, handwrite notes from the things we needed, hours and hours, and then later photocopy them, maybe. And, like hours and hours and hours and hours to find those details that are just, they're available to us. They have somebody, so it makes a lot of sense. It's like for your work for historical fiction, I think it makes so much work, like less work for writers there. There's so many good tools. So I don't know. The debate continues. People will still have their, no, you can't use it, or yes, I'm using all the things. So I don't know. We'll keep updated on that. I'm curious because in the medical field, I think AI is going to be a game changer. How are colleagues feeling about it from the medical standpoint, as opposed to we were talking about the literary publishing industry?
I'm actually surprised, I'm at an academic institution, so normally we should be at the forefront. And UF is actually the guy who started NVIDIA is from our university. So we've got a huge AI center. And the adoption by the residents, so they're the youngest of us, is much
Yeah.
slower than I expected. I'm intrigued
Interesting.
by that. There's a tool called Open Evidence, which you have to have a medical number for to use, but it only pulls from medical journals. And it's incredibly useful for like, a patient comes in, they're critically ill, they have a weird disease I've never heard of. In the old days, I would have to run up to my office and grab a textbook or
Yeah.
trust Google. And now I can go in Open Evidence and say, what are the anesthetic implications of XX disease? And in 2 seconds, I have a list of what I should look out for. Now, you
Wow.
still have to be smart enough to know to look, right? Or to
Mm,
know that
for
there
sure.
might be a problem. And so I should look this up. But the resistance to doing that is shocking to me.
Yeah.
Because it's just information, right? I'm not going to
Mm.
necessarily act on everything, but everything is referenced. You can click on it, go
Yeah.
straight to the article where it came from, and so it's not like the original LLM stuff
Yeah.
where it was hallucinating and making stuff up. So I'm sort of one of the people in our department who's trying to teach the residents and even teach my colleagues about
Yeah.
this wonderful tool. And it's also for education. I can say,
Right.
make me a a mock oral exam with this type of disease as the stem, and then I can use that to help me teach the residents.
Yeah.
In NotebookLM and also now in Spotify, I guess you can have it make a podcast. So I can download a very
Yes.
dense article and say, make me a podcast at the level of a medical student that
Yeah.
goes over the issues of preeclampsia, and
Amazing.
please focus on the physiology. And
Right.
it has these two people talking. It's so much easier to listen to than a AI
Yeah,
voice reading the original article, which you're not
for
going to
sure.
listen to.
No, no.
So
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I fear that
Fascinating.
people I
Mm,
fear people will stop reading the original article, which is unfortunate. But
right.
um, but if they're not going to touch it, at least this
Yeah.
gets them the information.
That's right. Yeah. There is something interesting. I'm sure somebody's studying this, but how some generations are much more open and willing to engage with new technologies. And I always think of the young folks as being really eager to learn all those things. But I too am finding there's a certain age of young adults who are like, no, I don't want that. Like, I think there's a fear about other aspects of AI, like jobs down the road, or, worried about the environment. And there's other issues that is surrounding it. Um, but I think, like, for me, like as a Gen Xers have adapted to every technology. Like, you know, we had the black and white TV that we switched the dial on and had three channels. And then, right? And every new technology, we're like, okay, we'll try that. So I feel like we're just innately open to the next thing. Even if we have reservations or fears about some of it, we're kind of a little bit more open. But I think the younger folks maybe are struggling with um, ideas that go beyond just using it as a tool, and worried about like and that's a little bit of fear mongering in the media maybe as well about what could happen. I
That's a
mean,
really good point. I hadn't thought of it that way. That's a really good point. It maybe have nothing to do with the technology and more to do with the environment and the water use and yeah, that's
yeah,
intriguing. I'll
somebody
have
will
to,
do that research for us.
yeah, yeah.
We'll see. Well, can you, before I want to ask you a little bit more about your own medical thrillers, and you have two published at this stage. Can you tell us what they are about, their titles and what they're about, so people can find them?
Oh yeah. So Fatal Intent was my first book. It was published by Ocean View in 2021, and it's basically about an anesthesiologist whose patients are dying under obscure circumstances and her investigation to figure it out. And it's, um, you know, messing up the hit there, but basically it's mercy killer for hire for elderly Parkinson's, dementia kind of patients, and it's just the intriguing thought of how should people die and who should decide when it's time. And the second one is called Misfire. It came out 2 years later, same publisher. It's a series, and it's about basically implantable cardiac defibrillators and the potential for hacking of medical devices, which my husband and I, he's an engineer with his own company, and we developed a device to monitor pregnant women. And one of the things we had to go through for FDA clearance was a whole bunch about, is it possible to hack this thing? And so that brought up these issues to me about how intriguing it is to what could you do? And I was going to do it with diabetes and somebody hacking their blood sugar devices, but I know too many people with diabetes and I didn't want to scare them. So, so I didn't go that way.
So good. What are you working on now? Anything in
My
the,
agent
yeah.
has my dual timeline book. So that one is
Mm.
a really fun story about the theory that the Salem witch trials were due to a poisoning of the rye crop. And so I took that idea and sort of ran with it and made a dual timeline out of that, which was
Very
super
cool.
fun to write. Um, the one I'm working on right now is in vitro fertilization and CRISPR gone wrong with gene editing. So it's a present day, but has a little adjacent possible sort of flavor to it.
Amazing. Sounds so great. And where can people find you, Tammy, online?
My website is just my first initial and last name, tuliano.com. And that's where you can find the books. And I've had a number of short stories published, which are super, super fun to write. And honestly, in some ways harder to write than long fiction. I was really fortunate to win an award last year at the Derringer for a noir short story, which my first time writing noir, which is not
Amazing.
normally, it's kind of dark for my taste, but it was really fun to write. So yeah, it's my newsletter is once a year. It's only when I have something to say. So you're welcome to sign up
And
for
you're a
it.
little busy.
Yeah, and people, some of the newsletters just don't contain anything that you need to know, right? And others are super useful. So so I try to just only say when I can come up with something useful.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Recipes because I can't cook.
Amazing. I love it. Thank you so much. It was such a delight to talk to you about your books and about AI and tech and medical thrillers. So fun. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll see you again when you have the next book out. That'd be great.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to have a coffee break with us at Women Writing. Don't forget to subscribe to Women Writing on Substack. If you like this episode, share it with someone who needs a writing break and a little inspiration. Happy writing. Thank you to Michael Jensen for his original music and editing, and to Mia Jensen for the logo design.